So, welcome to Ley Lines, Conscious Connections, and conversations with incredible people who are doing beautiful things for humanity. Today, I have Deb from Stalia Designs here. She is just beauty and love on legs. I adore her. I first met Deb through doTERRA, of all things. And then from there, I have seen her just blossom into this creative monster. She has just surpassed any expectations. But not that I actually had any expectations of you, Deb, in the first place, but just to see the growth and what you are doing in this world since I first met you is just wild. So welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and just to sit in presence with you, because you're one of my all-time favorite people and I just adore you. So thank you so much for the invitation.
Oh, thank you. It's interesting because I always, when I'm looking at who I'd like to have on this podcast, I'm always sit with spirit. And we've actually sort of spoken about this a couple of times beforehand, and we were just waiting for the opportunity to arise for us to really be able to sit with each other and talk about your extremely interesting life. And I actually almost don't know where to start because the story has been quite a big one.
Yeah.
So I think where I might start is we might just first of all go into a little bit of, sorry to do this to you, Deb, but a little bit of heavy stuff, but maybe it's not so heavy because I
Mhm.
know you and how you handle life and how you basically take the reins and go and create something amazing out of something that can be really quite debilitating for some people mentally, physically, spiritually, on all levels.
Mm.
So I'm going to get you to just have a little bit of a speak into, you may not even call it a struggle. We had a talk about this the other day, and I mentioned and named what is happening in Deb's life as her ailment. And she said, no, 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 it's not my ailment, it's
Yeah.
the. So you don't actually give it a name. So please let me stop talking, and I'd love you to share with the audience, the listeners, what it is that you are dealing with day in, day out.
Yeah. Thank you. Um, yeah, and I hope you didn't think I was being rude, but it was kind of played into the conversation that I felt like that we were going to have today. And it's something that I'm really, really careful about, is language. Right. So that's one of my real underpinning thought processes is around the words that we use, because words hold so much power. So 9.5 years ago, I was driving to my corporate role. I was acting in my boss's position actually at the time, and I was driving to a meeting. It was 7 o'clock in the morning, and I was stopped at traffic lights. When the arrow came so that I could turn right, I could not get my foot onto the clutch. I'd actually lost the use of my left leg, and I thought, well, this is reasonably inconvenient when I'm driving a manual car. So I physically picked my leg up, my thigh, under my thigh, picked my leg up, plonked it across so that my foot was on the clutch, and proceeded to keep driving to the meeting. But I was a bit dizzy and I felt a bit weird. I actually thought I was having a stroke. So I got to the meeting, poked my tongue out at a colleague and asked her to tell me what it was doing. And she was like, what are you on? And I said, I think I'm having a stroke. Is my tongue straight or crooked? And she said, it's straight. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not having a stroke. I'm fine. Off we go. But the leg was a persistent dead weight. It felt like a wet noodle with a brick at the end of it. I just could not get my body to respond in the way that it normally would without thinking, right? It's that autonomic, we're going to walk, we just walk, right? So I went to my doctor, and she was reasonably concerned and thought that because I had dizziness, I had the weakness on one side of my body, and I had a migraine actually, and she thought I had a brain tumor. So she sent me immediately. She said, go right this minute, and threw me into a CT. And when I came out of the CT, there was a man standing beside me, and he was not the guy that had put me in the CT. And he said, tell me about the weakness. Is it on the left? And I said, yes, it is. And he said, right, well, we need to put you back in with contrast. And he went away, came back, and he said, no, I've spoken to your doctor. We're going to do an MRI. So within 10 minutes, I was in an MRI. Lying there in July, it was freezing cold, and not knowing what was happening, using all of my willpower and all of my mindfulness training, all of my growth mindset training. I was right in the middle of a leadership program, and I had chosen the resilience stream. I mean, like, these things, you can't make this shit up, right?
Yeah.
So I'm lying there and I'm thinking to myself, whatever is in there is already in there. Obviously, they'd found something. All they're looking for is the name of it. Getting panicked, because I was literally almost having like a panic attack. And I kept telling myself, it is what it is. They're just looking for its name. Worrying about it isn't going to change the outcome. Just breathe through it. And I used my hypno breathing that I'd learned, probably 10 years before that, when I was pregnant. So all of these tools like that I had over the years gathered, and have gathered more subsequently, but were coming into play. So within 6 weeks, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. It was reasonably confronting, not the diagnosis so much, but the symptoms I was living with at the time. So the fact that I couldn't walk properly, I looked like a drunken sailor. I couldn't talk properly. I was stuttering. I would lose words. My kids were roller skating. I didn't know the word for roller skate.
Wow.
I'm like, the thing, it was just so different. I was a public speaker. I was a leader of people. I worked incredibly long hours. I just couldn't do any of it. So that was really, really challenging in terms of having to make some big decisions about what my future was going to look like. And about a month later, when my drugs arrived, I had to self-inject. I went to my doctor, and she said, you need time off. She said, you can't keep doing this. So she forced me to stop working for a while, and I never went back.
Mm-hmm.
So my health.
So that was how many years ago?
9.5 years ago. So yeah, she knew me pretty well. She'd been my GP for a while, and she's really an incredible woman. And she said to me, if you keep doing what you're doing, you'll kill yourself. You will literally end up so unwell that you won't be able to do anything. So take some time out. And each month as we reviewed it, she kept saying to me, you're not going back. You cannot go back to that environment. So, and it was good advice.
Yes. And so you've just got this confronting news from your GP and specialist. And, a lot of people would go into the mindset of, my life's over. What am I going to do for the rest of my life? If I can't work, and especially for you, because you were in a very high level corporate job. And yes, you were. And I must say, let me change that language. You are still the leader of people.
Yeah.
And I just want people to know how you got through that and came to a mindset that you were able to thrive, able to survive, all of those things. What is it that you did? There's got to be keys that people can use from what has happened to you and to millions of other people in the world.
Absolutely. I'm certainly not unique in the respect of, a diagnosis of a chronic illness, because there's plenty out there and they're on the rise, but that's another conversation for another day. But I'll admit that I was not good initially. When I was at my specialist, the second time I went to my specialist, so I saw him, because initially they thought I had a viral based brain inflammation, which is rare, but resolves over time. And he quickly said, no, that's not that, because you're too lucid. Your you're making sense. He said, because people with that, it's called ADEM, acute demyelinating encephalitis or something like that. But he said, you're making sense. He said, you wouldn't be if you had that. He said, it's looking more like MS, but we need to make sure that we do all the proper testing. So meanwhile, I was still working at this stage. So it was lumbar punctures and MRIs and evoked potential tests, looking at a computer screen in the dark, following these things, having an electric current put through the top of your head and then out through your hand to measure conductivity. Fascinating. So what I did during that process, even during the diagnosis process, through all the testing, was took myself a little bit out of it and looked at it as something that was really interesting. And why are you doing that? And that's one of the other things that's my not negotiables, is be curious, ask questions, and don't just take the first response. If you don't understand, keep asking. And so you know what specialists are like. They can be a bit dry and they're very, very, very academic. And my goal actually was to make him laugh. And I was successful. And now every time I see him, which is not very often, I make him laugh. So I looked at it like a bit of a project, like, this is interesting. What can I learn from this? And actually, when I was in that very first MRI, the other thought I had was, what can I learn from this that I can help other people with? Because that would give me a sense of purpose, right? Because particularly when, you know, that couple of months later, I had to stop working. So much of our identity is around what we do. You know, when you meet someone for the first time, they'll say, oh, hi, Sammy, what do you do?
Yes.
Right. And I can remember this because a very, very good friend of mine was many years ago, when she was a stay-at-home mum, and her husband at the time was a high flyer. And they would go to functions and people would say to her, what do you do? And she would say, I'm at home with the kids. And they would almost cut her off. Right. Reality is, she was the brains. He couldn't have done what he was doing without her support. Right. So they were a team. But I had this memory. And in that course that I was in, that resilience course, we were put into groups and we had to introduce ourselves. And so what I actually did when I introduced myself was, I'm Deb. I said, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a mother, I'm a wife. I didn't talk about what I did in my role, because this was from the Westpac group. So the broader group of thousands and thousands and thousands of people, distilled down to the top 100 leaders at the time at that level. And I don't know, I don't know why I did that, but it was only a couple of months later that I had the diagnosis. So we have so much that we ingrain ourselves, what we do is who we are, that I grieved really, really hard when I lost my career.
Yeah.
But I gained a lot. I got to spend time with my kids. They were 6 and 8, who I basically never saw. I got to take them to school. And you'll notice the language that I'm using. I was able to. So, and that was great. But then as I settled into it and learned how to live in and around it, then there was something that was missing. I was bored and didn't feel like I had much of a purpose. Some people I've met online, we set up 12 chronic illness groups on Facebook based on interest groups. So cooking was one, humor was one, pets was one. Like, there was all these different groups. Parents with chronic illnesses was one. So we felt like we were doing something, but I needed to get out of the house. I needed to do something more. So I went to design school.
Yes.
But interestingly, when I was 20, I started my career in a sewing shop and couldn't sew. They taught me how to. They taught me how to fix machines. So what I say now is that MS actually rescued me from the corporate world, because I loved what I did, but I didn't love how I had to do it.
Yes.
Right? Because there's all these rules and all these, you do it this way, and we need you to be focused on this. My role was to develop people, but I couldn't do it the way I wanted to do it. So MS took me from that, rescued me, from that environment and took me straight back to, not straight back, but eventually took me back to that creative part of me that had always been there. I was always the mum that made the book week costumes and made the end of year concert costumes, and I would make costumes for myself even.
And you make
the caterpillar.
And the dresses that you make now,
Yeah.
whoa, they are incredible. So I love it that you've said this, because this is moving into who you have become, actually who you
Who
always
I've
were.
always been.
It's very interesting because as you were talking then, I had a very, very strong grandmother maternal come in for me and for you.
Yeah.
And we know that the story around you and your creativity has actually gone back a couple of maternal generations and
Both sides.
has brought you to who you are now and what you are doing with your life. I really do believe MS came along to show you who you truly were, because just looking behind you right now, this is just a little bit of what you are capable of. Deb has a beautiful group of, there's so many things that you do make under the name of Stalia Design. And she goes to the markets Deb lives in Sydney, goes to the markets and sells these, but also, are you selling online yet? Have you started a little online?
Yeah, and this is something that my husband's actually, we're yin and yang, he and I, and he's like, when are you starting your website? When are you starting your website? And I'm like, I'm trying to build it. I'm a creative, not good on a computer. So I'm trying to build the website as we speak. It should be plug and play. It's not intuitive. I just am struggling with doing that part of it. So he's going to help me on the weekend he said, make sure you tell me exactly what, he's a programmer. So if I give him a rubbish instruction, I'll get a rubbish result, which is what he tells me, and it's true. So I need to have it very clear.
That's life.
Yeah, exactly right. When we're manifesting, be careful, right? Careful what you wish for. Our plan was one of us would be at home when our daughter started high school, and I was. Wasn't quite the way we anticipated it to be, but anyway. I will be selling online very shortly. Currently through Instagram, people can message through Instagram, but I do need to have a proper website set up so that people can shop when I'm asleep.
Yes. So Deb started off, what I remember her doing, first of all, was dog coats, which were just so gorgeous. And they started to get bigger and bigger. The dogs were getting bigger and bigger as you went along. And of course, I knew her right from the start as this woman that had these incredible dresses that she made. And I'm in awe of anyone, because my creative talents in the way of sewing are, I can put a button on and that's about it.
You're beating a lot of people there.
Yeah. And then she started to go and also do workshops and teach people how to do creative things as well. And behind her now, you can see these lampshades, and I'm absolutely in love with the one with the with the palm leaves on it. Is palm leaves or
they're monsteras.
Monsteras, yeah.
Yeah. So they are. That's one of my custom pieces where I actually carve a stamp, which I've taken you through.
Yes.
It's called block printing, where it's the old lino printing that we used to do at school. Goodness gracious, I don't know why we were allowed to carve as primary school children carve into these things, but anyway. So we make a stamp effectively, then ink them and stamp them onto the fabric, which sounds super simple, but there is a real process behind it. So that's my custom design there, which I do on lampshades, cushions, and tea towels, all on pure linen.
Yes.
I'm very fussy about the fabrics that I work with as well, but I also do a lot of upcycling of old reclaimed fabrics. So I reclaim denim. Denim is one of the worst materials in the textile industry in terms of the waste and the damage it does. And people, let's face it, you get a rip in your jeans and you discard them. So I've got another kind of part of the business, which is going to be either repurposing entirely, so I make bucket hats and that sort of thing, but also visible slow stitching, because doing things slowly, like carving those blocks, hand embroidering the jeans, and I've done some lampshades with that visible mending style, is a kind of like a meditation for me, right? Because my brain never stops. I talk fast, I think fast, I do things fast.
You do.
So this is a way of me just, it's coming back to me and just taking a moment, taking a breath, and just being. Like, I just completely lose track of time when I'm doing those.
And I think also, Deb, what you are doing is showing people to go back to their roots again. We're in this world, this really commercial world where everything is so fast and so, take away this, get everything as quickly as you can. Everyone is just race, race, race.
Yeah.
Whereas if we went back a couple of generations, I know my grandmother made all of my mother's dresses, all of her dresses. Everything was made with love. And that's the ingredient that I love about what you do. You are doing something with absolute passion. So someone isn't just getting a cookie cutter lampshade. They're getting something that has actually been made with thought in it, with a meditation process in it, with absolute love in it. Because I know that you also have great pride in what you do. If it wasn't good enough, there's no way you would give it to somebody.
No, that's right. Because I think that, people are paying for a quality product. So yeah, I wouldn't let something leave if I wasn't happy with it. So yeah, but I just love it. And that's another thing, right? So find something you love so much that you would do it for nothing. Right. And then kind of figure out how, I think it's a Jack Canfield thing, figure what that thing is and then find a way to monetize that. Right. So that's why I've got that two-pronged approach with it. So I make a product and sell it, but there's two types of people, right? There's the type of people that go, I want to buy that. And then there's the kind of people that say, actually, I think I might like to learn how to make that. So it's that sort of multi-discipline business in terms of having those different income streams for it, which is really important.
Yes. And so are you going to teach people how to do this?
I already am. So I'm teaching at one place in Sydney already with the lampshade making, but I've in conversations with some other people, and so that I can utilize their spaces. My ultimate goal is to have my own. I have my own space here. I've got a studio in our home, which I'm incredibly fortunate to have, but I would like a presence away from the house too, because this is our private space. So for running workshops, I need to be out in neutral territory, I guess. But I would like, my vision is to have a retail store that only stocks artisan products handmade by an individual, but that individual can also teach from that location, so that they can have that opportunity as well. So yeah, that's the goal.
And we're finding that these niche products now, these artisan products, people are really wanting them. They're wanting pieces that are not going to, no one else is going to have them.
Yeah.
Whatever you make, it's basically a one-off. It's never going to be the same as the next one. So this is a question we talked about this beforehand. You said, I've got my 5, and I was, my 5 what?
She got 7. Anyway, let me go.
Wow.
I did this. I've been thinking about it, but I did it at 4 o'clock this morning when I was awake. I thought, right, I've got to get this out of my head.
Yeah, your 5 non-negotiables.
Yeah.
Hit me with them. I want to know.
Okay. Well, you're going to get 7, but anyway, I think it's 7.
I love it.
I've got a book in me that will come out at some point, and it's called Shit Will Happen.
Oh, yeah.
Shit will happen. How you respond to that is what's going to define you, or define the situation. All right. So bad things happen to good people, but how we not react, but respond. So taking that time to formulate a response is where the power lies for me. Right. So I could have thrown all my toys out of the pram. I could have, and look, one of the things that scared me the most about MS as a diagnosis was that there's a link to mental health, there's a link to depression, depending on where the damage in the brain is, right? So you can have scarring lesions in the brain anywhere practically, and where that damage is tracks through to where that disability is. So it could, anywhere in the brain and spine, actually. So I had a huge lesion in my spine here, which explained the walking. And but spinal lesions can heal, incidentally, but brain lesions can't, apparently. But I'm going to try and prove that wrong too. But so I have damage in my brain in specific places, which is why I can't read commercially anymore. I find maths really difficult, all those sorts of things. So yeah, it's about like for me, it was understanding and being able to respond to that. And it's a little bit like, life might give you a cactus, but you don't have to sit on it.
Absolutely. I love that.
I quite like that too. I said it before, be curious. Don't just accept the first response. Don't just accept the status quo. Don't just accept. One of the things that I kind of came to realize really early on in the diagnosis process was doctors are not God. Okay, they are highly educated, very intelligent people making best guesses. And we wouldn't be without them. And I'm grateful for the support network that I've got, but they don't know what's really happening inside. So, when I said to when I went to my specialist last time, I said, Dr. Todd, when are we going to start doing some studies on essential oils and, other mechanisms that we can utilize for our well-being? And he said, we would love to, but who's going to fund it? So we need to be looking more broadly and looking after our wellness as a whole, because, we don't all of a sudden have a diagnosis of something. There are clues leading up to these things that we don't realize necessarily until we look back on them and realize that we've been poisoning ourselves, working ourselves into the ground, not being in alignment with what we should be doing, all these things, right? So once we understand that there is more, then we can start to either stop it before it happens or start to really heal ourselves.
Absolutely. I love that point, especially about the essential oils, because for you and I, our essential oils are medicine. I use them as a medicine when I'm working with clients. You use them for what? How do I word this, Deb? Just being a bit PC here.
Yeah, look, we've got to be a little bit careful about language, but I use them as medicine.
Yeah.
And, I used a couple in particular because I just loved them and it was just an intuitive feeling. And when I started to research into them, I started to understand that they're massive anti-inflammatories. So, and I'm not going to say specifically what those things are here, but it's readily available information. These are the first medicines, right? These are the medicines that pharmaceutical companies have now gone, and this is fact, pharmaceutical companies have gone and made synthetic versions of them because they can patent that and make money from it.
Yes.
That's it, right? So wintergreen oil, which we know is an incredible oil, they went and made synthetic version of that. And what do they call that? Morphine. So
there you go. I didn't know that.
This is what they do, is they think, oh, this is really amazing. It has all these properties and it does all these things. Let's go and make it in a lab when Mother Nature's already given it to us. And they're only doing it for profit. So, sick people make money, but that's another conversation as well.
That is definitely another conversation. We could go, could go somewhere very interesting with that.
Yeah.
Right. So all right. First non-negotiable. Is?
Shit's going to happen. How you respond to it is the key. So like thinking about how you are going to respond to situations is what makes those situations. So it's about thinking about how you're responding.
Yep.
Be curious.
Yes, be curious. And can we just put a copyright on the name of that book? Thank you. No one here can take it. That is ownership of
Yep.
Deborah.
I start and finish every day with gratitude. So I adore the work of Joe Dispenza, and he does this. He has a teaching where he talks about when we have the emotion, when we can instill that emotion in ourselves, then the outcome will just follow along naturally. So rather than, money's an example, right? So rather than thinking, oh, I've got $100 now, I'm happy, be happy first, and then the $100 will come. So I choose to start every day with gratitude. So I physically lie in bed. I do not get up until I have this intense feeling of anticipation of what the day might bring.
I love that.
And I love that. I love that feeling of anticipation, right? That today's like magical. What's going to happen today?
Yeah.
And I finish the day in the same way. I finish it with giving thanks for everything that has happened during the day, all that we are and all that we have as a family, as well as individually. So that's my top and tail for the day. Another not negotiable is you've got to find joy. So do things you love to do, right? So I loved what I did in my jobs. Like I said, I didn't love the way I had to do them. So I never did a job that I didn't enjoy, right? Because I love working with people. I love developing people. I love to see the light bulb moment when people go, oh my God, that's what you mean. Or I can do that. Or look what I made. So that's why that workshop part for me now is so important. It's not just I love making things. I love to do things with my hands. But I also love to see other people doing the same thing.
And you're a beautiful teacher.
Thank you. I just love it. I just do. I was on Facebook a while back, actually, and a little video popped up, and it was a bunch of old actors saying, and the phrase was, "This too shall pass." And we think about that a lot when something we're going through is difficult, or we're having a learning experience from something. So, this too shall pass, that things will get better. But it's really important to think about that too, as this too shall pass, even for the good things, because it's not always going to be like when you're in the middle of something that's really incredible, just stop and take stock of it, and be present with that moment, because it'll pass. And I was told that when we went to Europe, and my financial planner actually said to me, just make sure you stop.
Yeah.
Don't take a photo,
that.
Just imprint it in your mind, the feeling, the smell, all of that. And it was really good advice, because the month, you know what it's like, it goes so fast.
It really does. It really does. And I think sometimes when we take a photo too, we're actually missing out on a lot of moments, that getting the phone out, getting it ready. Oh, I've got to make sure it's the right lighting. All of those things, you're actually missing a moment.
Mm-hmm.
The best memories I have are when I didn't have a phone. So I really, really agree with that. So often we aren't present in a spectacular moment because we're either thinking of what's coming next, or maybe we're thinking about, oh, I remember this from another time, or comparing it to something else that we've done, instead of actually being in that moment. So I love that that's one of your non-negotiables.
Yeah, I think let me just check my list again.
Okay, have a look.
Oh, and you know what? Always have a pet. I know this is really bad.
I agree.
I think everybody should have a pet. And the reason I say that is they're never mad at you. It's the purest form of love, really, that you will ever have, is the way that your dog, in your case, dog, in my case, I've got cats are a bit in there, but we have 3 cats as well. We have 2 dogs, but the way they look at you, even if you've just told them off, I don't know, there's just something really special. And when I was initially at home, I had a very special cat. He was like a dog, and he would, if he knew I wasn't doing well, he would be with me and he wouldn't leave my side. And it's just so nice to have, even if there's nobody in the house, to have that pet there.
Yeah, that unconditional love. That's what they are. They are unconditional love. And
Absolutely.
even when you tell them off, they still come back for more. They're
Yeah.
just, I totally agree with that. That's one of my non-negotiables too.
Yeah. And I think that's really sad that I've just seen it, the number of people that don't know how to interact with animals because they've never grown up with them or had them in the height. Like, it's just, I don't know. We've always had them. I had them as kids. So yeah, it was just always part of our world. And it's good for your immune system. It's good for everything.
Yeah. And I agree with you. My dog was actually given to me when I got out of the army and was the best thing that ever happened for me in terms of mental health, and just because he was pure joy in every moment. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's
And they're
what
like
we
kids,
need.
right? They're so excited, and I feel like as adults, we kind of lose that sense of wonder and that sense of joy and play and those sorts of things that we see so readily in our dogs, and in young children are the same. They don't care. They're having a blast. They don't care who's watching them or any of those sorts of things. And it's a bit sad. And that's why I love so much being in my studio making things, because that's my sense of play.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up because it actually came into my stratosphere yesterday. I was thinking about childlike wonder and
Mm.
how we get so caught up in the seriousness of the world and we're unable to play. And play, I even put up a post yesterday. Apparently, for you to be able to remember certain things,
Oh, I saw
if you
that.
do it in play, 10 to 20 times in
Hmm.
play, you will remember it so much quicker than if it's a
It was about
dogmatic.
neural pathways, wasn't it? About
Yeah,
yeah, and if you have to do it by learning, it took about 1,000 times, but if you do it in play, it takes like 10 to 20 times. Makes so much
yes.
sense to me. That
Yeah.
joy
So,
anchors that.
and I feel like you are a bit of a player. Like, I shouldn't say that. We're not you married woman here, but no, but you do love to play, especially being a creative. You'd be playing every day. Oh, what can I try this time? What
Oh yeah.
creatively can I go and make in this moment? It'd be so much fun.
I'm not going to have enough time in my lifetime to try all the things that I want to try.
I will just come back again. Come and brighten our lives again in the
Yeah.
next life. You might come back as a dog next time,
Right.
just to go and
Hopefully
give
I'll find one.
everyone unconditional
Maybe
love.
I'll be your dog. That would be fun.
Oh, that would be. So one thing, because we're going to come to a close very soon, and I'm just so grateful that I was able to speak with you today. This is something that a lot of people need to hear. I think that there is hope no matter, and we're not just talking about MS. We're talking about any diagnosis that someone is given,
Or any
but
life-changing event, really.
absolutely, there is always a way out. And yeah, shit will happen, but how are you going to go and change it into something that is a learning? Instead of why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
Why is this happening for me? And I always do an intuitive oil for each of the people that come
Right.
on. So your oil was rosemary, and I got it straight away because
Ah.
it's the oil of knowledge and transition. And all of the knowledge that you have gained
Mm.
over the last 9 years since your diagnosis has led you to basically, for me, transition is transformation. And you have transformed yourself into this larger than life, incredibly talented and creative woman who you're going to change people's lives no matter what, just because you are you. You've also taught me a really important lesson today, and I want people to be able to take this on. When you meet your next person that you've never met before and you say, "Hey, I'm Sammy. How are you?" So what do you do? Instead of saying, what do you do? How about we ask, what's your passion?
Mm.
What is it that you want to do in this wild and wonderful world to go and be the change? You're going to get people that just go, what?
Yeah.
Straight away. But this is where these thought-provoking questions, instead of what do you do? Because a lot of women out there, and I would guess it would be men too, when you say, what do you do? And especially if they are mothers, I've seen a lot of mothers really shy off from saying, or they say, I'm just a
Oh,
mum.
I hate that.
Oof,
I hate that
that,
just word.
that hits me hard because
Mhm.
you and dads as well, because there's lots of dads out there doing the single dad gig as well, or, running a family while the wife is doing the
Yeah.
earning.
Yeah.
Your job is the most important job on this planet. You are raising the future.
Mhm.
So when you say what you do and you say that you're a parent, stand up and be freaking proud of what you do.
Absolutely.
Because look what you've done. You've had the opportunity to be able to be home with your children, to be able to raise them, and you are just the most beautiful, devoted mother to your gorgeous daughters. And I look at you and I put you up on a pedestal,
Oh,
which I've
stop.
been told I shouldn't do that. But you
I
know
don't.
what? Someone has said to me, when you put someone up on a pedestal, what you're actually doing is you are a mirror of them. So I'm going to take that as looking at you as a mother. I think you're incredible. I must be a pretty incredible mother too.
So sorry.
So I love it that Rosemary's come through for you, because it's all
Thank
about
you.
trusting the process. It's all about trusting that change is going to be good. It's all about having that knowledge and going and also accumulating the knowledge to be able to share your talents with the world, which is what you're doing now.
Mm.
And I love it. And I really hope I'm going to put handles at the end of this for all of Deb's, her Instagram, well, eventually it'll be her website as
Well,
well.
there'll be a link
Her
on Instagram to it eventually. So
Yes.
yeah.
So that you can see the incredible work that she's doing. And I really hope, Deb, that you can share more of your journey with, I don't know, do you have a name? Because my mum has chronic pain, but she calls it chronic bananas. So she she
I
doesn't
call,
call
yeah, I do. At this very start, I started off by calling it Mary.
Mary.
Mm.
Nice. Yeah, because we don't want to associate with
Yeah, and
whatever it
that's
is
why
that's happening with
when
us.
I'm saying language is so important, and I don't say my, I say the, because it's separate
From you.
from me. So it's in there,
Yes.
but it's not mine. Because when we with anything, so my herbalist said this to me probably 16 years ago now. She said she doesn't like to give names to things because then people own them.
Mhm.
Oh, it's my da 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 playing up, or it's my what's her name, and then we kind of like we just absorb it and accept it. And so no, I don't do that. It's over here.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, and that I totally agree with that. I know that I have used that language, and I often will correct my language and my clients' language when they're laying here on this beautiful bed, to change their mindset, to
Mhm.
change because it's changing neural pathways within your
Mhm.
body. That
Mhm.
that's the most significant thing of all. So I really want to thank you for coming on today. I would love everybody to go and have a look at what Deb does, what an incredible woman she is, what her passion is, what she wants to do in this wild and wonderful world. And for any of you out there that are struggling with Mary at the moment, this is a woman that would be wonderful to speak with, to go and possibly change your mindset. Also, of course, we've got Stalia Designs. Look at those, magnificent lamps behind you. And Deb puts up stuff all the time, and I salivate. Just even some of the bases that she finds for these lamps, And yeah, it's all just magical to me.
Thank you.
So I just want to thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming into my existence, because I have just, you are like a butterfly to me. I've just seen you just bloom and grow and just become an even more magnificent version of you in the short time that we have known each other.
Thank you so much. It's been a real honor to be here with you today.
I love you so much. So, if you are interested in any of the topics that we've spoken on today, please leave comments below. Make sure that you actually subscribe to Ley Lines, because there are amazing people just like Deb that are going to be sharing their stories with you over the coming years. And I'm going to go and tag Joe Dispenza in this too, so that he can send you a DM, Deb.
Oh my God, I don't know what I would do.
Yeah.
And be on my
And my last thing I want to say to all of you out there is, what is your passion? What is it that you want to do in this wild and wonderful world? Because Deb is an example of someone who has gone and defeated anything that is negative in her life and is moving forward in leaps and bounds and just doing incredible things for this world. So I thank you, Deb, and I hope to get you on again, because I think we could have some very interesting conversations. Thank you so much.